These are the biggest movie and TV show surprises and disappointments of the year so far. Alien Romulus is a huge disappointment for me this year. Not to say I think it's a terrible movie, it's like a fine 6 out of 10 film, but I feel like there was just lots of weird choices that held this film back. Big problem is that it's trying to do too much from previous Alien movies, which you can see as an homage, but I just find it kind of lazy because I'm watching action sequences I've seen before, hearing characters say direct quotes that I've heard in previous Alien movies. I wish this thing was just a little bit more of its own unique movie. I do have to give it credit though, the third act was incredible. I really came into Fallout with absolutely no expectations, but this still might just be my favorite TV show of the entire year. I was not expecting that whatsoever going into this. It just felt so fun, fresh, and unique. I love all the main characters, Lucy, the Ghoul, and even Maximus, who a lot of people don't like. I really enjoy his character too. And it truly feels like they really respect the Fallout source material, the style of humor that's in that game, while also making it its own unique thing, one of the best of the year. I can't lie, I'm one of the only people on the planet that actually thought Ekko was going to be good, but I was completely wrong on this series. I felt like it had so much potential though. I liked Ekko's character in the Hawkeye series. Trailers played up the Kingpin and Daredevil aspect to this and made it look like it was going to be like their prestige television trying to fit the vibe of the original Daredevil show, and I was super excited to see how the MCU could do this, but this thing ended up feeling more like a CW show than anything else. I still really like Ekko as a character. I think the actress did an incredible job, but this is just one of those cases of we did not need a spin-off for this character. You could tell they did not have enough of a story to fill these episodes. This thing just drags on towards the end. We start focusing way too much on our family and friends, and I'm sorry, it was so boring every time we did. The ending of the show was just so unbelievably goofy. Like I said, they were pitching this as a prestigious TV show and it just did not work at all. It's not all bad for Marvel TV shows though, because X-Men 97 absolutely blew away any expectations I had for this show. I was really unsure how to feel about this. Was it going to be good and a great continuation? And yeah, it was even better than I could have possibly imagined. This seriously gives me some of my favorite X-Men moments of all time in this series because every character is portrayed so perfectly. I absolutely adore that they brought back all the original voice actors. It really helps capture that feeling of the original show while also upgrading on it. All the different dynamics and tension and drama between the different characters is so good. It almost gets soap opera-y at some points in the show, but honestly it works in my opinion, and I really love the animation. They took a lot of inspiration from different anime, you can tell, and it looks gorgeous, especially the fight scenes. I have always been lower on the Bad Batch than a lot of other people were, but even I was still kind of excited for season 3. I was like, hey, maybe they're gonna have an amazing conclusion for these characters, give us a great, just go out on an all-time high note. And I'm sad to say that is not what I got whatsoever in this season. I feel like we really just dropped a lot of storylines we were building over the first 2 seasons with certain characters like Sid and everything we were building up to in season 2. We get Omega trapped in this prison for like the last 6 to 7 episodes, and it just felt so repetitive, like they were just trying to pad the length of this season. And while it seemed like the original purpose of the show was trying to explain the entire how Palpatine cloned himself, we kind of just throw that away by the end of the series. I thought the ending was kind of anticlimactic, and I was just not a big fan of this whatsoever. Inside Out 2 was such a pleasant surprise for me because while I did really enjoy the first one, it's not one of my favorite animated movies of all time or anything, and neither is this, but I actually think I enjoy this movie more than the first Inside Out 2, which I was not expecting to happen. And I'll admit, this movie doesn't reach quite the emotional highs of the first film, but I do think the emotional moments in this film do still hit because of how well they portrayed the character of anxiety. It's one of my favorite portrayals of anxiety in a movie I've ever seen, in my opinion. I think they did it so well. In addition, the other new emotions, although they play a very small role, I thought they added a lot to this cast of characters, and plus this movie is way funnier than the first one. The humor was really hitting for me. I was not expecting to be laughing all throughout Inside Out 2, but that's kind of what was happening. The animation also looks absolutely gorgeous in this movie. You can see the difference in how long it took from the first one to this one to come out. They took their time with this film, and it was such a pleasant surprise for me. Civil War was a huge disappointment for me, and I know everybody that doesn't like this movie just gets labeled as like an idiot, and everybody's like, oh, you didn't get it. Listen, I can understand and get the point of the movie and still not think it was great. I feel like this was just not the angle to take on this movie. Like, I really like the idea of showing the war through these photographers and journalists and showing kind of both sides and how both are wrong and war is bad, but newsflash, everybody knows that war is bad. I think it's a movie that ends up playing it way too safe for most of the film, and then at the very end it does the opposite, but it ends up failing in being shocking because it just feels like a pointless moment just to be shocking. Maybe I'm alone on this one, but I just did not care for this movie. Batman Cape Crusader is one of my favorite shows of the year, and I honestly completely forgot this thing was even coming out, so this was such a nice surprise when this dropped a couple weeks ago. I binged through all the episodes in like one day. It just gives a super fresh, unique take on Batman and a lot of his classic villains, but it also introduces some really lesser known villains. I guess get their own episodes to kind of be spotlighted, which I really enjoyed, and I hope they continue that in the future seasons of this show. I also just love the portrayal of Gotham City in this show. I think the music is incredible and really adds to just the overall vibes, and we focus a lot on the police department, and like Jim and Barbara Gordon are honestly just as much as main characters as Batman himself, but it adds a really fresh and unique angle that really separates this from other Batman shows. I had an absolute blast with this thing. Let's keep the positivity going for a little bit with a back-to-back surprise, because My Adventures with Superman was such a decent surprise, because I honestly had never even watched season 1 of this show. I just thought from the name and kind of some of the trailers I saw, it looked like it was targeted towards a way younger audience. I thought there was really going to be nothing for me to take away from this, but I caught up with season 1 and got all through season 2 after it released, and I was so pleasantly surprised with this. It's just simply such a good version of Superman. I love his friends in the show. Supergirl in season 2 added a great dynamic to the group, and there's just lots of fun moments between all these characters. It's a perfect example of don't judge a book by its cover, because you'll miss out on some of the best Superman content we've honestly ever got if you don't watch this, just because of the name, like I was doing earlier. Anybody remember that Ghostbusters Frozen Empire released earlier this year? Because if you forgot, honestly, good for you, because this thing was an absolute catastrophe. I didn't really care for Ghostbusters Afterlife. I honestly thought it was pretty terrible, so my expectations were already low. This thing was just an absolute mess. There's so many different characters and storylines they're trying to jam into this thing. It honestly should have been a TV show, if anything, but I really think we're just at the point we need to leave the Ghostbusters franchise alone, stop with the reboots and sequels and everything, and just leave it alone, or make like an animated series and something just completely unique. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes had high expectations to beat after how good the last Planet of the Apes trilogy was. It was going to be like, oh, was this going to be a cheap cash grab, or would it be able to capture the vibes and greatness of those earlier movies? And somehow it really did. I think this is right up there with War for the Planet of the Apes. This movie smartly doesn't try to replace Caesar. Instead, it makes his legacy such an important part for these new characters. Like, I love Noah. He's so completely different. He's not a natural leader like Caesar was, but that's what makes him a great character. They really do something interesting with May as like the only human character, but there's a bigger reveal later on that I thought really worked as well. And of course, Proximus Caesar is still one of, if honestly not my favorite villain performance of the entire year. Not only is the motion capture incredible, the voice performance from Kevin Durand is just so good. Every line he says is just memorable and quotable, and it has so much gravitas behind it. And he really is what elevated this film from like an 8 out of 10 to honestly, I have it sitting at a 9 out of 10. It's in my top 3 of the year still. The Percy Jackson series on Disney Plus was so disappointing for a multitude of reasons. First of all, I absolutely adore the books. They're just so fun. The characters are so personable, and it's really just a blast to read. And I feel like this show did not capture any of those fun vibes. But what makes it shocking is that the cast outside of the show in interviews and stuff seem like best friends. They seem like they have so much fun and chemistry together, and somehow none of that translates on the screen. It's got to be the writing or directing. Hopefully it improves in the Sea of Monsters season 2. The show also just looks really flat and dull visually. Like, I don't know how they could not make this thing a little bit more colorful or vibrant. It feels like it was shot in an iPhone. These are all things that can easily be improved upon on season 2 though, so I am very hopeful that it will improve. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments a big disappointment and surprise of the year for you so far, and make sure to like the video.